Hey everyone, I'm Jay Krupski. I'm one of the co-founders here at mobile.dev, and we're the creators of the test framework Maestro. And I'm proud to have the team from Wahed with me today, David White and Furqan Daud, um, to talk a little bit about their experience and journey to Maestro. They've actually been users of Maestro for a number of years now. They're one of the OGs of the framework, and so just wanted to take some time to talk with them to hear kind of about their experience and benefits and all that good stuff that they've been able to achieve with the framework. So anyway, without further ado, guys, um, give us a quick intro on yourselves and the company. David, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Jake. My name's David White. I'm an engineering manager with Wahed. Been with Wahed for 4 years now. Wahed is a fintech that specializes in Islamic finance, and our customers mostly interact with us through a mobile app, a React Native mobile app. So that's kind of how we discovered Maestro as a React Native testing framework. And then I'm joined by Furqan, who's our QA engineer who leads most of the implementation work. I'll let him introduce himself a little more.
Yeah, thanks, David and Jake. Hi, everyone. I'm Furqan, and I'm working as QA automation engineer and leading the Wahed automation team, basically, alongside a very good team of front-end engineers and David managing all this automation. So good to join this session, Jake. It's finally
Awesome
good.
to have you guys. Awesome to have you guys. Yeah. So Furqan, how long have you been in the automation space?
I have been in automation space from 3.5 years, and I've been with Wahed for almost 3 years, you can say. And I joined as a very newbie in automation, and it's great to be here in Wahed.
Awesome, awesome. Well, cool, David. I know it's been some time, but I'm curious if you can reflect back to those 3 years back and sort of what things look like at Wahed and sort of why you wanted to find better tooling for your testing process.
Yeah, the pre Maestro days, it's going back quite a way now. So we originally, the company, when I joined, we had a third party testing company that we worked with, and they would take builds of the app and they would distribute it to their QA team, and they'd run tests, and our product team had written tests, and we had this kind of setup of doing regular testing with them. But it was quite a smooth turnaround, and it was hard to change the tests to, and to really get feedback when there was problems. You've got to go through a couple of layers to see what's going on. And I think that's when we initially had the idea about, could we automate more? And Appium came up on the radar as the de facto thing to use. And yeah, we looked at Appium, and I had the team kind of working on that, and it was hard going. Like, it's not very friendly. You have to know, I think Java and JavaScript. Like, you had to know quite a lot of low level stuff to kind of understand some of it. So it was quite a challenge. And then it was a colleague of mine, mentioned, "Oh, have you heard about Maestro?" This sort of, I think there was a Medium article or something. You guys had just started out, and it's like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. I like that. That it was almost like what I had in my head of why I wanted to create an abstraction on Appium. You guys had just already done that. Like, it's like, oh, some nice simple commands: click, click, open, do this. And so yeah, I was interested, and we gave it a go.
Amazing, amazing. So curious then. So you checked it out, and then for Con, you're there at this time. But what was that process like, getting ramped up with Maestro as you were first sort of taking a look at it, and then how to go from there?
Yeah, I remember we were using Appium, as David has mentioned, and I remember that with the first Maestro script we showed to David, and we were quite unsure because we thought, what could beat Appium? I mean, it's one of the OGs, one of the main tools. And I remember telling David that, okay, it might not be of very use, but it was actually David who convinced us that, guys, it looks very strong. Just try it out again. And we did the same thing. We try out again, and we found it super cool. I remember a few of the landing screens, some of the deposit journeys we automated and showed to the team. And we found it super simple. We found it to the point, YAML-based script. And we basically, on what we were spending 3 hours, 4 hours to write a test, with Appium, we could do it using hardly 10 to 15 minutes. So that was the main point, the time cutoff that we were having. And we impressed our managers right away.
Yeah,
They were just,
it sold itself, didn't it? Like, I mean, that's the thing. Maestro
Yeah.
was a no-brainer. Like, this is so much better.
yeah.
So yeah, we
Love
and we carried on. So yeah, when we had to do a bit of work to convince everyone, because it was a big change. We'd had invested a lot of time in Appium and our own infrastructure for running the tests. But yeah, like Maestro, it came along. I think it was just timing. We were really lucky that you came along at just the right time, Jake. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. What I'm curious, I feel like another thing that when I talk to a lot of teams, they're always kind of trying to wrap their head around what they should create tests for. And I'm just sort of curious what your guys' strategy was is okay, Maestro's the thing, but now what? You know, it's this okay, you had a manual testing organization helping y'all. Were you thinking, hey, can we augment that? Or were you just trying to get a few core flows in? Tell us a bit about kind of what that mindset was as you were ramping up your testing there.
Yeah, I'd say that. So I think because we already had a structure, we already had tests written for many of the journeys, and our app is, I mean, there's two parts to it, but in a way, the most important part is the onboarding flow. So because it's a financial app, there's a journey you have to go through. You have to do, you have to give us some personal information. You have to do the KYC, know your customer, lots of ID checking. That process can take time, but essentially it's one thing after another. So we had those flows documented, happy paths and not so happy. We could take those and think, well, we can create YAML files that will match that and just go through that flow. And so that was our first step, really, of just taking the initial things and seeing if we could actually run it with Maestro.
Yeah, I remember in the initial days, what we stick to the basics, and what we did was those test cases, those manual test cases, we just tried to automate it step by step. And this is where Maestro clicked us right away, because you see, what we did was assert, visible, tap ons, and we started with very basics. So each and every step was being automated from the manual test case. So it had nothing to do with APM at that time. So we were just trying to target how do we cut off some basic cases. And that is what really convinced us. Because in David, I guess within 3 months, we were able to automate around 40 test cases with Maestro. And this is how it went. And we gradually started telling our third party company, which were doing manual testing for us, that guys, you need to cut this off. Don't manually test this one. And eventually it was one last bucket that was remaining to test.
And can I, because I think the interesting thing as well, like that journey, I remember that it's when you first sign up, a key part is that we need to get some funds deposited into a new user account. And that's where I think, again, it was good with Maestro, because actually, you've got the JavaScript API. Like, we could call our own thing. We'd created extra tooling for the test company to call, so they could do things like deposit some test funds or do things. Again, that was easy. Like, we could just call our API directly from the Maestro, and yeah,
Yeah.
we managed to do that. Yeah, I think that's what we did. That's what we focused on first, was getting a user onboarded, initial funds in their account, and could they just get to our dashboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I do recall that you got the pretty long flow that there is for a user getting onboarded and all the steps there and how critical that is. So I
Yeah.
feel like,
And I think that's how we got to know you, because I think that's where there were some initial challenges there. I remember, like, with timing out and stuff, like the test, you wouldn't let us run our test for long enough. So
that's right.
that's how we ended up talking.
We have seen that 7 minute time limit. We know that 7 minute time limit pain we had at that time.
Why
But
would anyone need longer than 7 minutes to run a test? Yeah. That
yeah,
was
I guess we are the OGs one who actually convinced Maestro that, guys, 7 minutes is too less. Just make it more.
yeah.
But but yeah, I guess I remember initial days when we had this meeting about onboarding thing. Jake and team supported us really well there. Even onboarding took actually a lot of time. We had to create some backend APIs on our end to accept on transactions, accept KYC and stuff, which couldn't be done obviously using any tool. So we had to do some work on our backend. But as David has said, API thing has always helped us a lot.
Yeah, and you did it, Furqan. You were able to work around the things. I mean, that again, that's what I like about tools like Maestro, that they're still like at the sort of programming level. The engineers can take them if there's a feature that doesn't quite work. We can work around it.
Yeah.
That's what's so good, and
Yep.
open source and everything. It's really good. So.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about like state of the world now. Like what like the test cases, do you have like a sense of like the test coverage that you have in place in terms of, is everything automated for the most part with Maestro? And then like what you're doing. I know you guys are running more frequency of tests than you used to and
Yeah.
the benefits there.
Yeah. So for for everyone watching this, some background of our app. So Wahid app is right now currently basically running on four major markets. It's UK, USA, Malaysia, and international. We are about to launch in few other buckets too, few other markets too. Um, and we had to divide tests in such a way that we had to cover for all these markets separately because journeys were a little bit different, especially onboarding journeys. So that's where we started. We had smoke test in the very start. So by smoke we meant what manual testing we were using. So the third party company, we used to provide them a document. There were around 50 tests. We used to give them a document and they used to smoke test that build, give us back, and results took 3 to 4 days to return. That's where we saw difference in Maestro. And today, you are asking about current state. We stand somewhere around 250 tests, and so that is four into what we had into manual. And we not only cover smoke tests, we now also cover some of the side cases. We cover every single major app journey. We cover you can say kind of regression because uh, we run test on nightly basis. We run test on release, and before every release, somehow something is always caught up earlier, and we catch bugs, we resolve it. So that is where Maestro has actually very helped us. So current state again, we stand somewhere around 250 tests, multiple type of testing we are doing, and we are in a state that we are trying to find what edge cases should we cover. David and I were just having discussion last week that how do we measure if a test is useful for us now, because everything major is already covered. Now we
Yeah.
are going towards usefulness, that if a developer or myself, if I'm writing a test, how it will become useful for us, or if we are writing some random test. So we have come into that state in these 2 years that we are trying to find what to automate. And I think that is pretty big for us in regards of automation. Yes, you can't automate everything, but we do believe we have covered somewhere around 80 to 85% of tests. We can say it very comfortably.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's improved our release cadence. So previously we were every 2 weeks, then end of our sprint, we would do a release. We've now reduced that to once a week because we can do the nightly run of the tests. Sadly, we're not at a point yet where we could do them on every pull request. That would take too long. I think it's still 3-4 hours to run all the tests, but we can let that run overnight. That gives us pretty good confidence that that build is good to release.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's to speed the whole thing up now. So that's good. Business is really happy that we're getting more regular releases. Yeah, like that works well for us. Like we don't do code push, so but having it like a weekly release is actually a good compromise for everyone.
And
So,
that's awesome to hear. That's a really cool story. I feel like so many organizations I talk with are still kind of very much in the world that you guys were, waiting days and days. And so it's cool to be able to share these kind of stories. I guess like kind of wrapping it up, the what is next. You guys are kind of thinking about what else to test and do, or what are some of the things that you're excited about in the testing space? I know you're starting to explore the website, doing testing with web with Maestro, but
yeah.
throw out some hot takes of things you'd love to see.
Well, I'd say the web one's the obvious one. We've started using your web product now. So as we do have some internal tooling and things that are web based, and it makes sense for us now. The developers are familiar. I mean, that's the other thing we've not really talked about is actually Maestro has been good in that it's not, we don't really have a separate QA team, although we have Furqan who's leading it. Like our devs can write tests as well, so it's a kind of mixture. We just create tasks for dev work that are also write a Maestro test for this feature, and somebody picks it up because actually it's straightforward to do. And yeah, so we even explored, the AI tools help write the Maestro tests as well because it's straightforward. If you're just on a journey, you want to click through things.
Yeah.
Whether we can get to a point, I still like the idea of going from the actual designs and the flows in Figma to actually writing the tests and getting that all done, click of a button. But maybe we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, and I must mention one thing here. David has talked about developers. Um, where Maestro has helped us, we were using Appium, and whenever we used to ask a front-end engineer to write an Appium test, they would just straight away say no. And it's kind of their right to say no because it's not their JD, it's not their they have to learn Appium from very basics. They have to set up and write it. So when it came to Maestro, it was difficult to convince, even in case of Maestro, it took few months. But when they got to know that, okay, this is YAML and they could write a test in 15 to 20 minutes, this is where the difference came. And we started to see within a year that, okay, developers are taking interest, and what we can do is we can just push them a little bit more in such a way that we bring cases and stories, we bring cases in all of the apps and write test on the go as the feature we are developing. So that is where Maestro actually made a very big impact, and that's why I'm a very big fan of Maestro because everyone takes interest when they gets to know that it's simple, better than others, you can say.
Yeah, and I think for the developer, for me, I find it useful that just as writing code, I can have a little bit of Maestro code just automating clicking stuff. So I'm not even needing to go and click stuff in the simulator. I can just write a few lines of Maestro code to do it and run it all in the terminal locally. So so it's not just in our CI/CD pipeline we're running this. We can run it locally and use of it as well. So it's very flexible.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave it at that. I appreciate you guys taking the time. It's really cool to hear this story. And yeah, just grateful to partner with y'all. Lots to come. Keep the feedback coming. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Pleasure, Jake. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, Jake. Thank you.